Is there a reason why my video was turned off?
Yes, Councillor Stone, we are live right now. It will come back on when the meeting starts.
Okay.
Mute. Okay, good evening, Council. First off, as a result of the Order of Council issued by the Province of Ontario declaring an emergency for the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as the requirements for physical distancing, the meeting is being held electronically in accordance with Section 238 of the Municipal Act. The procedures for the meeting are as per the town's procedural bylaw and the electronic meeting protocol during emergencies. I will now ask the clerk to conduct a roll call of council present.
Deputy Mayor Nancy Elcock.
Present.
Councillor Dan Armour.
Present.
Councillor Jason Fitzgerald.
Present.
Councillor Dion Schumacher.
Present.
Councillor Bob Stone.
Present.
Councillor Brian Thompson.
Present.
Councillor Jonathan Weed.
Present.
Councillor Tim Withy.
Present.
Mayor Karen Terziano.
Present.
Thank you. We have quorum.
Okay, as in previous meetings, I will read a mover and seconder for each motion, and they're pre-assigned, and if anybody has objections, just raise your hand. So moved by Councillor Alcock and seconded by Councillor Schumacher, be it resolved that the council meeting agenda dated Wednesday, June 24th, 2020 be adopted as printed and circulated with the removal of item 8.2.2 Bylaw 2020-54. All in favor? And that carries. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Councillor Thompson?
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a disclosure of interest in closed session, the third item on the agenda. It is not part of my particular personal agenda for closed session, but it has to do with a real estate matter. And because of the realtor of choice for the town of Huntsville is the broker for the same company that I'm associated with. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. And 12.4.1? Confirm. Thanks for that. Couple of updates before we get into resolutions. First, traditionally, this is graduation week in Huntsville and so many other areas, and so many of our hardworking students are completing elementary, high school, post-secondary, and I just want to congratulate the graduates because we understand that they are missing ceremonies and parties that they generally get to participate in, and all of their accomplishments are certainly not unnoticed. So congratulations to all of the graduates this year. A couple of reminders. Canada Day is next week, and we will not celebrate in our traditional Huntsville activities, such as the gathering at MHP or the fireworks, but each of us can still celebrate in our small groups and proudly fly our flag and sing our national anthem. So that's Wednesday, July 1st. A little update on the distribution of PPE to our business community. It's been very successful. The Chamber distributed all but 3 orders that were placed, and the BIA has distributed all of their orders and have stretched some of their supplies to a few businesses that were missed. So that's a good news story. Muskoka Futures with federal funds and district funds have had significant uptake on their loan program. I think the last numbers, they indicated they had more than $2.4 million in loan requests. And I think they'd already filled 1.3 million of those requests. So that's good for business too. I think all of the outdoor patio extensions requests have been addressed and approved and now operational. So thanks to our staff for making that happen as quickly as they could for businesses. And personally, I've been receiving numerous requests to make residents in Huntsville wear masks. And it's not a municipal authority, but I do encourage the wearing of masks whenever you are in a confined space. We have to note that the best protectors of each of us are ourselves, and everything we can do to protect ourselves and our community, we should be doing on a regular basis. One last note, there's drive-through testing will be happening at the Canada Summit Center tomorrow, Friday and Saturday from 10 to 5. No appointments necessary. They are closed from 12 to 12:30. There could be some long lineups, but it is drive-through, so hopefully it will move quickly. So anybody who feels they need a test without an appointment, that's there for you next 3 days. Okay, so in the motions, garage and yard sales, we did pass a motion a couple of months ago to ban garage and yard sales, and there have been some requests through the town office as to whether we will be lifting that soon. So if council is of a mind to lift that ban, we can do so, or if you'd like to see it continue on for a bit, we can do that too. Is there any preference? Councillor Stone.
I believe it's time to allow garage sales, and I would move that.
Okay. Councillor Withey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Your Worship, how does that fit with where we're at with the province opening? I'm just wondering if there's any sort of connection, you know, between what's being allowed to open up provincially. Are these things on the list, or I think the issue that we had before when we thought about not allowing them is that they were hard to police as far as social distancing and things, and the onus being on the person holding the garage sale to try to keep people spread out, etc. And therefore they could, if they couldn't control the crowds, they could get possibly fined by passing police or what have you. I just don't know. So my question is how does that fit with where we're at with provincial opening, and is it, I mean, those other issues still exist. Is it prudent to do this? I mean, I've been hearing anecdotally some things around town where people are not practicing social distancing at all. So there's still a concern with that.
I think the province never passed anything on yard or garage sales. It was something that we did as a municipality, and you're quite right. Some of the things that you just suggested were the reasons why. Probably the only thing that's changed is the groupings of 5 have increased to 10, but provincially, that's probably the only thing that's changed. Councillor Armour was next.
Thank you, Your Worship. I look at this as being something like your farmer markets. They're open now and operating in all our communities within Muskoka. And I think that the people who are operating these yard sales should be policing that social distancing, post some signs, maybe make that part of the rules. And I think it should be fine. I think we should be opening them.
Councillor Alcock?
Thank you, Your Worship. I think I'm inclined to also open them as well. I am curious, though, have other municipalities, do we know of other municipalities that have done this? Or presumably lots of municipalities have had the same sorts of requests that we have. So just curious if we know the answer to that.
Madam CAO, I think the queries have come through your office. Do you know anything about other municipalities?
I do, thank you, Your Worship. So the other municipalities in the District of Muskoka, to the best of my knowledge, did not restrict garage sales. I believe that we were the only municipality that did, to the best of my knowledge, in discussions with my colleagues in the area. And I have had 3 inquiries. I actually had a lady stop me as I was coming in the back of the building asking when she could have a garage sale. So I did mention that to the mayor and thought it was a valid discussion to have with council again. And to confirm, there were no restrictions from the province for garage sales. It was strictly to do with the number of people gathering.
Councillor Thompson.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I would be in a position, I would second that motion for sure, after moved by Councillor Stone. My experience has been that wherever I've gone in town, or wherever actually, people are basically distancing themselves on their own. I don't think they have to necessarily be reminded. And I think that, now that the group numbers have been increased to 10, I think now, as one who has attended a few garage sales, you seldom ever see more than 10 people at any one time at a garage sale. Anyway, I mean, they're very fluid. People come and go. So I think as long as the vendors are aware and ask people to be, socially responsible, and I don't see a problem with it. So I'd be glad to second that motion.
Councillor Withey, did you?
Well, I guess my concern is that, farmers markets and the like have liability insurance specifically for what they're doing, where a homeowner holding a garage sale may not have that as part of their homeowner's policy. In fact, it could be likely specifically excluded. So if there's an issue where somebody decides they've been come ill because they've gone to a busier than normal garage sale, then there could be repercussions that way, and all the way back to us. But I mean, you got to weigh the risks with everything. I mean, we're talking about something later this evening that does that. So if people feel that's an acceptable risk, I guess they can take it.
Okay, I have a resolution, and as I say, these were already appointed. So I have one moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Armour. Be it resolved that Council rescinds Resolution 12820, which was a resolution we passed to ban garage sales. So this is a resolution to rescind the motion. I will call a question. All in favor? Opposed? And that carries. I have a resolution moved by Councillor Stone, seconded by Councillor Weed. Be it resolved that council meeting minutes dated May 27th, 2020 be hereby adopted as printed and circulated. Questions? All in favor? That's carried. Reports from committees. There is a 2019 annual report from the library board in your package. It's included for you to have a look at, but I believe the library board chair and new CEO will come at some point when we're back to in-person meetings and give some updates on that. But if there's any questions, I would be happy to answer those. BIA Board of Management minutes, Councillor Stone, anything to highlight there?
Most of it's in the minutes. We've been meeting bi-weekly. The downtown really appreciates the painting on the sidewalks, because we know our sidewalks are going to be torn up in a year or two. But they appreciate that, just to heighten awareness for people walking down the main street. They appreciate the PPE and the all the signage that they've received from the town. Benches are either out or coming out shortly to liven the downtown, hopefully. And the parking ambassador has started working.
Any questions of Councillor Stone? We'll move on to the Lake-Bay's Chamber of Commerce, Councillor Weed.
Thank you, Your Worship. Actually, nothing really to report. You covered off a bit of it in your opening, and actually Councillor Stone covered a bit off as well. But and there's another item coming up later on the agenda to discuss. But other than that, nothing else, nothing to report. Thanks.
Okay. Any questions? And the Municipal Accommodation Tax Tourism Entity, of course, basically they're still working away at marketing plans to attract visitors back to our community when the time is right, and working with external organizations to do that. I have a resolution moved by Councillor Alcock and seconded by Councillor Fitzgerald. Be it resolved that the Special Planning Committee meeting minutes dated June 16th, 2020, and the recommendations contained therein be hereby adopted as printed and circulated. Deputy Mayor Alcock, would you like to highlight anything from those minutes?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll be quick. It was the first meeting that we had of the Planning Committee in 3 months, so everyone was really excited to see each other. That's my attempt at levity. So we didn't deal with any items that required public meeting component, but we did approve 3 separate site plan approvals, one of which was for an electrical company on Gun Club Road. And we also approved 2 zoning amendments to lift holdings pertaining to 2 residential developments. And associated with that were 2 approvals around part lot control for those particular residential developments. They were approved. The committee also concurred with the Federal Department of Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada in approving the siting of 2 telecommunications towers, one of which is located near the hospital on Muskoka Road 3, and the other one is on Etwell Road. And we also agreed to recommend to District that a 2-year extension be granted to Huntsville Highlands development to allow time for them, the applicant, to fulfill conditions in their draft plan of subdivision. And finally, the committee agreed to go forth and hold its first public meeting to be held in July. And at this point, it looks like it will be a virtual meeting, but it will be the first public meeting of planning. So that's pretty exciting too. And that's my report.
Thank you for that. Are there any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? That carries. Okay, we're on to reports. And first we have, I guess we've received quite an award from the Municipal Information Systems Association of Ontario, which I do believe this award has to do with our strategic plan, but I'm going to ask Margaret Stead, who's joined us, to highlight that for everyone.
Great. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Nice to see everyone. Yeah, here to share some good news regarding the strategic plan. The award that the town of Huntsville has won is from the Municipal Information Systems Association, MISA, the Ontario chapter, and the awards for excellence in municipal systems. It's based on 3 areas of criteria: furtherance of municipal strategic objectives using information technology, demonstrated improvement in service delivery to clients, citizens, or businesses, high level of collaboration between IT and other municipal departments. This year, the award is also won by a few other municipalities. That's a common occurrence for this particular award. The other municipalities this year include City of Brantford, City of Toronto, Town of Whitby, and York Region. The winning municipalities will be taking place in a webinar on June 25th, tomorrow, because of the conference was canceled this year due to the COVID pandemic. But next year, the winners will also be recognized at the conference. Hopefully it's held next year. Everyone is welcome to attend the webinar tomorrow. Information is on the MISA Canada website under latest news. And just to highlight, the project was submitted with the title Town of Huntsville 2019 to 2023 Strategic Plan from PDF to Structured Data Dashboard. It outlined the significant change we undertook to move the high-level document, high-level guiding document from a static PDF to a data-driven website that now supports interactive dashboards and the alignment of the departmental business plans. So the binder that once sat on the shelf is now a living document at everyone's fingertips, including staff, senior management, council, and all residents and community members. The project was able to expose and now celebrate the great cross-departmental teamwork and as well as our resourcefulness in using our software tools. So staff receiving the award are the Service Excellent team members. So that's Joel Duffield, Manager of IT, Andrew Zanier, Records Management Coordinator, myself, Corporate Information Coordinator, as well as the Manager of Marketing. Both Lisa Skolnick and Lauren McDermott, both were involved with the project. And a few other staff members to highlight as well. Of course, our support from our CAO, Denise Corey, the new business plan data from Reva Frame, our Deputy Treasurer, as well as public engagement and data creation from Caradon Gilchrist, our website information coordinator. We look forward to building on this new strategic plan format. We look forward to working together to incorporate more data and more digital tools into the other areas of municipal service delivery. The strategic plan was updated with a new video to include Mayor Terziano, and it also shows an overview of how the dashboards work. So if you haven't watched that kind of new video, please do so as well. It's a great video at the beginning of the strategic plan. And again, it's on our website on the plans and study page. So we're excited to that and wanted to share that good news with you.
Thanks, Margaret, and congratulations to you and your entire team. I'm pretty sure it was my video that put it over the top, but not really. If there are questions of council before you go. Any questions of Margaret? No. I can see Deputy Mayor Alcock is doing a huge applause. Absolutely, great job. Thank you.
Thank you again. Good night.
Okay, sticking with reports from municipal council, or from municipal staff. I'm having a little trouble with my words now. I have a resolution moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Armour. Be it resolved that council authorize the purchase of one four-wheel tractor and commercial snow blower at a cost of $212,822 plus HST to be funded from the Fleet Reserve. Director Hernan, would you like to speak to this?
Thank you, Mayor Terziano. Just a simple report here. We originally had told council that it was $180,000 expenditure in our fleet capital budget. This exceeds that by 12%, by over 10%. Came in at $212,000, so we have to bring this back for approval. Within the capital fleet approved budget, there's enough money to cover it from underspends on other equipment that's purchased. So it exceeds our limits that we are allowed to spend, and that's why we're here asking for permission. But it's all been approved in the 2020 capital fleet budget, so it'll have no bearing on the taxpayer. Some of the money we saved on other trucks is going to be reallocated to this purchase. Happy to answer any questions.
Councillor Withy.
Thank you, Worship. Just wondering, is this I mean, that's quite a difference in price. Is this because it's a different model, or is it just it was misquoted in the past, or just the age of the old quote?
I think it was a combination of all factors there. We were hoping that we would get a demo unit, and that was one of the things we asked for in the quoted packages. There was no demos available that met our requirements, so we're into a brand new unit.
Councillor Thompson.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I wonder if we could ask Director Hernan to maybe elaborate a little bit to council and the public as to the advantage of this particular machine and how much work it's going to be saving us and how it'll be put to use in the winter months, especially, or particularly, I guess, being a snowblower. I wonder if Director Hernan could maybe elaborate a little bit on that.
Certainly, through you, Mayor Terziano. So it is a 175 horse tractor, so it's a large tractor with a very large commercial industrial blower on it. So a lot of the snow removal we do now in certain incidents, we'll be able to blow the parking lots back to save us having a truck and handle the snow. Key areas it's going to help with is snow removal on the side streets, on main streets when we look after it, keeping the BIA clean, those sorts of areas. Right now we use the small sidewalk machines for that. And they have a difficult, they're capable of doing it, but they have a very difficult job, and due to their size, there's multiple passes. You've probably seen other contractors with this sort of equipment around town, a very large machine that will be able to blow the snow in. And more importantly, where we're going to save money down the road in future years, this isn't just going to be a winter unit. Our intent is to put the brush mowers on it. So rather than sending two machines out to brush the side of the road, it'll be a single operator, single machine. We have gone to a large enough size that it can handle multiple implements, post-hole diggers, chippers, things like that. So it's going to not just be used 6 months of the year, it'll be used 12 months of the year for multiple functions within the division.
Okay, all in favor? That's carried.
Thank you.
I have a resolution moved by Councillor Withy, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Be it resolved that bylaw 9540 to govern the use of guns or other firearms be repealed and replaced with the draft discharge of firearms bylaw attached as Appendix I to report development 2020-37 as amended. Is Mr. Cruson with us? Yeah. Corey, do you want to speak to this? Corey, you have to unmute.
Sorry, new to this. Thank you, Your Worship. Just want to start out by noting that the attached schedules to the report are our previous version, includes the maps and all and that type of stuff. I believe the clerk has sent out updated versions that are to be included with the past bylaw, draft bylaw. So anyways, I just wanted to note some substantial changes to the bylaw. One of the changes is the addition of bows to the restricted items within the prohibited boundaries, where in the previous bylaw there was no restrictions. They're actually exempted from the previous bylaw. The next change would be there is an exemption that's included within the draft bylaw that would allow for bows or shotguns to be used within the restricted areas, given that the property where they're being discharged is 3 hectares or 7.4 acres or greater in size, as well as there's also been an included time of day where the start of the day and the end of day where a bow or shotgun can be discharged. And final is all the maps have been redone to include both the previous boundaries as well as to meet the new OP boundaries. Whatever set of maps was more restrictive was that's where the boundary was extended to. Some of those boundaries are within the locks and the Edison maps. And also most recently, the Woodland Heights subdivision was added into the Hidden Valley map at the request of association. So I'm here to answer any questions if there is any.
Okay, thanks for that. Questions from council? Councillor Alcock.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Corey, for that. Just a quick question. I know Woodland Heights was added. One reason why they added to the area of restrictions was the number of houses in the area, and it had a lot of growth over the last few years or whatever.
Sure.
And I wonder if there is a minimum number where you start to look at a residential community that would now be included in that. I'm just wondering, because I think the number in Woodland Heights was over 100 homes or something like that.
Okay.
And if I live in an area that has 80 homes, is that not enough, or what's the number? Is there a magical number?
So through you, Mayor Terziano, there's not really a number that we've really looked at. Is in this case, it was we did receive a letter from the Woodland Heights Association requesting, and given the lot sizes in that area, they are fairly small, so you wouldn't want to have someone discharging a firearm within that little subdivision there.
Okay, thank you for that.
Councillor Withy.
Thank you, Worship. Further to Councillor Alcock, that the Woodland Heights, as Corey pointed out, had nothing to do with numbers. It was basically instigated by them when somebody decided to poke around and look for things on the website, which is why I want to make this next point, is that it is driven by the community. So anybody listening should be aware that they can look at the maps, the correct ones, and see if they're there and not, and also, you know, make a request to have their area added. So that's how that happened. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions? I'll read the question then. Call the question. All in favor? And that carries. Thanks, Corey. And I believe we will not pass the bylaw tonight because of the incorrect attachments, but we will do that at the next meeting, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. I have a resolution moved by Councillor Fitzgerald and seconded by Councillor Alcock. Be it resolved that Council approve the draft shared services agreement by law with the Township of McMurray, Monteith, attached to Schedule A to Report Development 2020-38. Mr. Nagy.
I'm here.
Okay, would you like to speak to that?
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, council members. Pretty straightforward report. Our adjoining neighbors from the north are short building officials at this point, and they've asked for some temporary assistance. Within the agreement, we've noted that we can do it on a 1 day per week for inspections, and we'd amalgamate the plans review through our current system. And the attachment, or sorry, and the agreement is actually based on once they've retained a new building official, or the township, town of Huntsville actually notes that we can no longer service them because we have too much workload, we would be able to dissolve this contract. So happy to answer any questions that anybody needs answered, and yeah, let me know.
Council, questions? Councillor Weed.
Thank you, Your Worship. Really quick, Chris, what were they doing prior to this?
through you, Your Worship. They previously did have a CBO. He was let go, and they actually had a shared servicing agreement, much like we have with Lake of Bays and Perry Township with Kearney. Unfortunately, that agreement came to term and ended. And at this point, they weren't, Kearney wasn't in a position to continue with that while they didn't have the a member at McMurray Monteith. The issue with not having a building member is you can't go into a straight shared servicing agreement because you aren't receiving those services back, right? So, you know, Kearney at the time felt, I would imagine that, you know, it's nothing going both ways at this point. So unfortunately, they terminated it. So, yeah.
Okay, all in favor? And that's carried.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. I have a resolution moved by Councillor Withey, seconded by Councillor Fitzgerald. Be it resolved that the salary administration policy number HR 13, Court 28-19 be amended by changing the CPI month from October to July to coincide with the budget and financial controls policy. Lisa Smith, do you want to speak to this?
Thank you, Mayor Tiziano. Yeah, the report before you, as noted in the resolution, is in response to the financial report that was submitted to Council regarding the 2020 budget debrief and also the budget and financial controls policy. To review and amend our salary administration policy by changing our CPI month from October to July, to coincide with the budget and financial controls policy specifically, and also to follow, or also to allow for earlier budgeting preparation with respect to salaries, wages, and benefit amounts. So, anybody has any questions?
Questions of council? No? I'll call the question. All in favor? And that's carried.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks.
I have a resolution moved by Councillor Fitzgerald and seconded by Councillor Alcock. Be it resolved that the town of Huntsville enter into a one-year memorandum of understanding with the Huntsville Lake of Bays Chamber of Commerce with an optional annual renewal subject to budget approval for tourism and marketing services. And further, that the financial contributions outlined in the MOU shall be funded from the municipal accommodation tax budget. And further, that the final MOU shall be completed to the satisfaction of the Chief Administrative Officer. Scott, do you have anything to add to this?
Thank you, Your Worship, and good to see you tonight, councillors. Yeah, just before a quick synopsis, I did want to thank Kelly and her team. That team's given me a lot of help over the last, since I've been with the town of Huntsville and the Chamber of Commerce, particularly in the economic development department. But in particular, over the last 10 or 12 weeks, they've been instrumental in a lot of the initiatives and programs we've implemented for the business community during the COVID-19 pandemic. So it coincides nice with finalizing this MOU. It just better aligns roles and responsibilities. I think makes the priorities of both organizations very clear. Makes it very clear for the chamber, I think, what the expectation of council and town staff is for the fee for service that we provide. And in particular, as we evolve through this process, again, it'll just align both organizations and make sure that we're both supporting each other as we move through, hopefully, to the recovery phase of the pandemic. Thanks.
Any questions? Councillor Alcock.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thanks, Scott, for the report. I'll support it. I just had a question though around the town roles and responsibilities versus the chamber responsibilities, and I certainly understand some of them, like the municipal strategic priority setting. I get that. I wasn't sure. It has the town responsible for market development, and that's all that it says. So I'm sort of curious how you see that role, what that means, and because and also the whole position around digital marketing, and is that something the town's doing, the digital marketing, who's preparing the product to be fed into that? And is that related to market development? That's my question.
Okay, so I'll start with the first part of that. I think with market development, it's just important that I think obviously we're probably not going to set all the market development, but it gives us the opportunity. I think if council or staff sees an opportunity, we can work with the chamber, whether that's, use sport tourism as an example. If we see that's something that we want to push forward, we can work with them to try and push forward with that. On the digital side of it, that's generally the space that the chamber operates in. I think they've done a great job since I've been with the town, understanding that obviously digital marketing is kind of the way of the future, and the cost of it is far cheaper, and your reach is far more effective going forward. And your third part of your question, if you just want to maybe clarify that for me, Councillor Alka.
I think you've clarified. Because it was around the digital marketing.
Okay.
So you see the chamber doing the digital marketing, and we'd be feeding into their work on that.
Yeah, I think there it's important to note that it just says work collaboratively with the digital side of that. So I would view that as a team effort.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, all in favor? And that carries. Thanks, Scott. I'm going to mute for a second. Okay, the next report, which doesn't actually have a resolution attached to it, so I'm going to go straight to the report to Scott Oval for the not that one, for the Hidden Valley Ski Resort and Huntsville Mountain Bike Association report. Scott, do you want to start off that discussion?
Yeah, thank you, Worship. I can give a brief synopsis. So as identified in the report, we've been working with the Huntsville Mountain Bike Association over the last 2 years to try and find locations, both municipally owned and privately owned, that could serve as a location for the future development of mountain bike trails and possibly as well kind of multi-use recreational trails. We've identified a few locations over the last couple of years. Unfortunately, for a variety of reasons, we could never really fully follow through with an agreement or tri-party agreement. In the spring, they approached us, and I identified they've been in contact with the Hidden Valley Highlands ski area as a potential location. We met with the GM there, and I'd shared some draft agreements that had been created in the town of Bracebridge, and the board of directors there was liked the concept. Subsequently, after kind of we'd worked through the pandemic, we met with our insurance agent and talked about the concept about going into a tri-party agreement with another two partners. And they raised questions, obviously, about the insurance and our exposure to risk management. And we understand that there's a great deal of interest in the public to see this proposal move forward. So what we've tried to do tonight is just provide council multiple options that they can discuss and provide clear direction to staff as to how they would like us to move forward.
Okay, so council's aware of the 4 options that have been presented. As I said, there's no resolution. Staff's, I guess, recommended option is the one that we do not enter into an agreement to do this. But they've also included 3 other recommendations or 3 other options that they do not recommend, which are some form of entering into something. So I do have a resolution that has been proposed by Councillor Alcock. So I am going to let Councillor Alcock speak to it first before I read it. And we will need 2/3 of council, though, to introduce this motion. Councillor Alcock, do you want to speak to it first?
Okay, thank you very much, Your Worship. You don't need your 2/3 before I speak to it, or I shouldn't say that. I'm delighted to speak to the resolution. The one that I'm proposing is similar to, I think, recommendation number 3 in the report. which ostensibly has council directing staff to start negotiating an agreement with both the Hidden Valley Club as well as the Huntsville Mountain Bike Club, and to ask them to work out all of the legalities and the leasing arrangement, all of the details, and to bring that report back to council no later than the meeting in July, because there's a bit of a time sensitive thing around this particular proposal. So I'm obviously very supportive of this proposal. I had the opportunity to meet with one of the people that's really advocating for this early in the seemed to me early in the new year, but I guess it was early spring. And when it was discussed with, I was quite excited about it because it was an opportunity for a partnership between a private entity within Huntsville, which is Hidden Valley, that was keen to enter into this partnership, but also with the town. And the way it was presented to me, and I really liked, was it had the support of the International Mountain Bike Association. And so it was very similar to the agreement that the town of Bracebridge has with Porcupine Ridge and also the Mountain Bike Club. And it is also supported by the International Mountain Bike Club. And the importance of having IMBA, the International Mountain Bike Club, in it is it insists on a protocol with the partners so that they ensure all of the appropriate standards that are required for any type of mountain bike course are in place, which includes signage, also a myriad of things. I'm not a mountain biker. I have a hybrid bike, but I'm not a mountain biker. But I understand that that's a really important part of the piece. And I actually called one of my councillor colleagues at the town of Bracebridge to try and get a sense from him as to some of their issues. And it was interesting to note that with Bracebridge, they very much wanted to be part of the partnership that they now had. The last time they dealt with it, I know the note makes reference to the fact that it's a recent agreement. The last time they dealt with it at the town of Bracebridge, it was actually to extend the agreement. So they are really keen on their partnership. It works really well for them, and they see it as an economic development tool, as a great thing for tourism. And we talked about the risks. So I think it's really important that we make note of that, because most of that actually wasn't in the note with respect to IMBA. And I think that's really important. And the partnership angle was really important to me because it's not putting all of the onus on the municipality. So the way I understand it is that, and again, what was repeated to me from my colleague at Bracebridge, one of the reasons why they want it in is if we said to the Mountain Bike Club, you have this arrangement with Hidden Valley, it becomes a private partnership, and it doesn't allow for public access. And that to me is exactly what we want. I look at it and say, what's the role of a municipality? And I think that a role of the municipality is to provide activities that are becoming quite popular, and popular for a reason, that many other municipalities, I know there were a few listed in the note, but in fact, mountain biking is becoming a very popular recreational activity that many municipalities, the city of Orillia has 80 kilometers of mountain bike trails that they are responsible for. What we're talking about here is the addition of 8 kilometers, 2 4-kilometer trails. And I think it's really important to note that the Mountain Bike Club has made it very clear that what they're looking at is beginner to intermediate trails, that these trails are not going to have all sorts of built-in structures that are for extreme cyclists. They're also meant to be multifunctional, multi-purpose trails. So they will be encouraging hikers and walkers to be out there. And in fact, if you have the multi-use, that will make the other use of mountain biking safer, because people on bicycles will necessarily have to slow down. I understand this proposal to be the cross-country ski trail of biking, right? It's similar to cross-country skiing versus downhill. So for all of those reasons, I think that's really important. The other thing I really want to emphasize is I noticed our note didn't really highlight, in my opinion, all of the benefits of something like this. And in the next note in our package, when it talks about COVID recovery, it talks about the actual percentage, how important it is to have outdoor trails and parks and even outdoor sports activities for the mental and physical health of your community, and how important all of that is. And so I look at this and think that wasn't actually referenced in this note, this mountain bike note. And I thought, well, that's kind of, to me, that's a very positive thing. So I look at a number of the check boxes that are important to this town, from a tourism, economic development, physical and mental health. This does so many of those things. And plus, it's a partnership where the Mountain Bike Club, which will be insured to do the work, is insured to create the trails, the 8 kilometers, and to continue to maintain them. And I think, so what a wonderful opportunity that I just think, from my perspective, I think I just get very excited about it. So the last point I want to make, which is, I understand staff have a role absolutely to identify when something is a risk, for sure. And I've heard a couple of members of staff suggest that, well, this is just adding to all of the risky business, and it's the municipality's liable. And then there was a citing a case in what was it, in Bruce County, where the municipality was found liable for 100% of a mountain bike accident that happened in their facility. And I would like to, while that's obviously very important to look at past decisions, I also think it's important to look at comparable situations. And I think in this case, it's a bit of apples and oranges. I looked at one of the legal reviews of that case, and they identified some of the issues why the municipality was found liable. And it was negligent in the kind of signage that it had. It had some signage, but it didn't have the right signage. It didn't talk about the risk factor of various functions on the trail. It didn't say, this is extremely dangerous, you need to be so-and-so level, whatever. So that, to me, the connection, and plus that course did not have a partnership arrangement, which is what's being proposed here, with all of the safeguards built into it. So to me, I look at that and say, well, that's a bit apples and it's a bit oranges. I'm not denying that this adds some risk, no question. But then so does skateboard parks, and so does having hockey rinks, and frankly, having a diving board in a pool. So these are a lot of things that municipalities decide for the health of the community, that they think it's worth taking the risk. If they think that all of the various benefits offset that. And so from my perspective, and again, the note it made reference to the fact of it will affect our insurance policy. It would have been nice to know in what way, and maybe some comparable municipalities where it has done that. All I know from all of the research I've done, and I've done a bit, there are municipalities clamoring to have this kind of partnership arrangement. And I have heard absolutely nothing but 100% positive feedback from anybody who has heard about this issue being before us tonight, who think that it's something that we should be doing. And I have to, my final comment is, one of my colleagues around the table said, I don't really understand why you're so interested or keen on this issue. And I said, you're right. I don't mountain bike. But I just look at it, and given all of the material I've looked at, I'd look at this as an absolute benefit for our community. And I don't play hockey either, but I certainly support hockey being played in our municipally owned hockey rinks. So I don't think there's anything wrong with me looking at mountain biking and saying, I think I've looked at the risks, I've looked at the benefits, and I think the benefits far outstrip the risks on this. And so I am very much in favor of this this particular proposal, and thankful that it was brought to our attention. So, thanks.
Thank you. I think Councillor Fitzgerald, you're the seconder of the motion. So, although I haven't read it, but I saw your hand up next.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I'd written out 3 or 4 pages to speak on this matter, and Councillor Alcock has precluded all that information in her support of the Huntsville Mountain Bike Association. I couldn't agree more. I think that when we have an opportunity, and we've been striving for this for ever since I've been on council, is to encourage partnership agreements with third parties and private parties, and come up with new ideas and innovative ways to make things happen, which sometimes would not normally be able to happen in our community. And this is one of the early examples where I think we have the opportunity to enter into one of these partnership agreements. I see that there's some risk, and there's never reward without some risk. And I think to fall back on the insurance risk that the municipality was held 100% accountable. Well, I'm sure there's several claims we've, as a municipality, have been held 100% accountable. So I don't think that is the way to govern the way we look at opportunities with private partners, and to engage our community in a healthy lifestyle, and one which, in light of the current situation, seems to be something that isn't a team sport, so could lend itself to the current health advice that we're hearing constantly on a daily basis. So I have nothing but support for this. I would love to see some costs for insurance coming back on this, so we can make a decision at our July meeting for sure. But thank you, Councillor Alcock, for your passion. And I've received many emails and phone calls regarding this, and I was in support of it before I received those, because I just think it's time that we move in the right direction and get our community moving. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Councillor Wiebe was next.
Thank you, Worship. I'll try not to pile on too much in terms of my support. I really do support this idea. I think it's fantastic. I feel like, why didn't I think of this? But I have a couple points. One is around decision-making in terms of who would decide when the trail would be open, let's say seasonally, and then who would decide when it would be closed due to conditions. And then kind of in relation to that is, if the mountain bike club wanted to hold an event would they have the power to decide to close it for that day, let's say, because it's a public facility? So a few there, and then if I can get clarity on that, that'd be great.
Okay. Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I'm totally in favor of this too, and I couldn't agree more with the comments from Councillor Alcock and Councillor Fitzgerald. I did some research myself. I talked to the Director of Community Services at the town of Bracebridge as to how they handle this type of thing. And it seemed to be, you know, a little bit of work involved, but they definitely do handle it. And I think given the fact that we have, between now and our July meeting, we have time to have staff do the appropriate research and get us the numbers and that kind of thing. I think that would be appropriate. And yeah, and like everyone else, I guess we've all received countless emails and comments in support of this initiative. And I along with what Councillor Alcock said, I think from an economic standpoint, I think that alone, I think, weighs very heavily in favor of this, plus the other factors that Councillor Alcock mentioned as well. So I would support this, and absolutely, thank you.
Councillor Withey, you're next.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a couple of points on the insurance part of it. There will be 2 other liability policies in play here should anything happen, and likely everyone would be drawn into any sort of action that would come out. There's the town, Hidden Valley Ski Club, and the Mountain Bike Association. So that actually makes less riskier from our insurer's point. I should point out there are a number of insurance markets that cover these things. I've actually asked for a couple of quotes without mentioning any names or anything under the radar, just to get an idea of what kind of numbers they throw at this. But I too believe that this falls into the bucket of what municipalities do for their citizens, and very important to have an active community. So I won't belabor it, but obviously I am in support. Thank you.
Councillor Armour.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd just like to echo those sentiments from everybody. I do support this. I believe it's an opportunity for us to advertise our town as another place for destination for people to come to. Other municipalities currently have many mountain bike trails that they police. And I think of it from the snowmobile perspective. Huntsville is currently not known as a very snowmobile friendly community. And I'd hate to fall on the radar of being a not very friendly mountain bike community. We're very close to Algonquin Park. We're very close to other mountain bike areas, and I totally support this. And thank you very much, Scott, for the report.
Okay. Councillor Schumacher.
Yeah, I definitely am supporting as well, and talked to a lot of constituents in my area who have really echoed that they have gone to Bracebridge and would love to spend their time in Huntsville and be able to bike in the Huntsville community. So I'm supporting, and in light of the situation in the pandemic we're going through right now too, this is definitely, you know, checks all the boxes of what we need to be out doing, being out in nature, getting exercise. It's a sport that can be, you know, experienced through a social distance aspect, and I think it's definitely something that we need to get going on.
Okay. All right, Council, I'm pretty sure we're going to get 2/3 for a vote here, so I'm going to read the motion. It's moved by Councillor Alcock and seconded by Councillor Fitzgerald. Be it resolved that staff be directed to prepare agreements with Hidden Valley Highlands Ski Area and the Huntsville Mountain Bike Association for the purposes of developing and maintaining public accessible mountain bike trails in Huntsville, subject to legal review of the agreement and the town's insurer. And further, that the draft agreements be presented at the July council meeting for final approval. Any further questions or comments? Councillor Withey.
Thank you. I just had a quick one. So what you read there was kind of a hybrid between option 2 and 3, as I understood it. Which I'm fine with. I was just wondering, as I read option 2 and 3, I didn't really see a difference. It was sort of a difference without a distinction, if you know what I mean. So, but I think what you read is a bit of a combination of those.
Yes, the staff was not recommending 2 or 3, but Councillor Alcott basically drafted this, which is as
A brand new one. Okay, that's sorry. Thank you for that clarity. Got it.
Councillor Fitzgerald.
I think we should bear in mind Councillor Weeb's comments regarding private use and closure, and consider that very carefully when we come up with a tri-party agreement, or details of the agreement, that those kind of things are addressed as well, so we have as much detail as possible to make the decision.
Yeah, I think I would say that after reading the report and then having a conversation with the president of the Mountain Bike Association, the big difference between what they're proposing and I think what we were initially looking at from a staff perspective is strictly a family mountain bike trail use area, not a gravity fed from top to bottom on the ski hill, and not an extreme sport. And I think that it's important that our agreement reflects that we're supporting a mountain bike trail loops, not extreme sports. And I couldn't agree with you more, Councillor Weeb's comments about the opening and closing dates and things like that. I think our agreement with the club can address all of those, and I think that it's incumbent upon staff to make sure they talk with each of these organizations to get an agreement that works before we come back. Any further questions? Councillor Alcott.
I just thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to add to, and I know that staff are aware, we do have the good fortune to have the Town of Bracebridge's agreement. So there will be elements of that we can certainly mirror. And I agree with you, Councillor Weeb, about your questions about who gets to make those decisions. And I'm sure that the parties or certainly the Mountain Bike Club will be well aware of the need to respond to that. So, and I'm sure staff have made note of that. So I just wanted to add, we do have, another agreement to look at.
In fairness to staff, Julia, I did see you pop up there at one point and then you disappeared, but did you want to weigh in on anything that's been said or get any clarities from what council's looking for now?
No, I think we're good. I just wanted to mention that we will need the actual design drawings from the club, so we'll work towards getting that. So, but we'll just need that prior to being able to get a comment from the insurance company.
Okay, thanks for that. Scott, did you want to add anything?
No, I just wanted to clarify the questions specifically that Councillor Weeb was addressing, is just when they're opening, when they're closing. I think both daily and seasonally, if that's correct, and then just language in the agreements about closure for a private event or something of that nature, correct?
All right then. You've all heard the resolution. All in favor? And that carries unanimously. Thank you, Council. Okay. The next item is the COVID-19 Economic Recovery Plan. And this has 6 resolutions attached to it. So I'm not sure, I'm not going to read all 6 resolutions. I guess we should. Madam Clerk, can we discuss the plan in total first? Okay, we'll discuss the plan in total first and then deal with each resolution individually. Julia or Scott, I'm not sure who's taking the lead, but the floor is yours.
I can run with it if you're okay, Your Worship. I do want to note too, a lot of iterations of this report. So just in motion 6, it refers to Schedule C, which is actually in the attachments is Schedule D, which is the actual recovery plan. So just ask the council to just make note of that. And then what we've tried to prepare is a synopsis of basically what staff has done to date to support the economic recovery in Huntsville, as well as we've drafted a recovery plan that again provides a synopsis of that, as well as what staff in partnership with both the chamber and the BIA, and then we vetted it through the economic working group as well as various other parties, is what we're going to be looking at, I think, in the near future from an economic recovery standpoint. I will stress too what you see there, particularly in that recovery table. That's going to be a living document, something that we're going to be constantly evaluating, and any recommendations you're seeing in there, if there's any costs associated with those, we'd be bringing those back to council for your approval and input on prior to implementing a lot of that. But just wanted to give you a snapshot of where we're at today and where we're looking at probably going over the next 4 to 6 months.
Okay. Julia, do you have anything you want to add before we go to questions? So, council, we will read each individual motion. Is there anything in general that anybody wants to ask up front, or do you just want to deal with it motion by motion? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands, so I'm going to start with the first resolution, moved by Councillor Armour, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Be it resolved that the Director of Operations and Protective Services and the Chief Building Official be delegated authority to enter into agreements with any necessary parties related to the expansion or creation of a patio occupying a sidewalk, road, parking space, or other town-owned lands for business purposes for the remainder of 2020, as long as they adhere to the proper building, fire, Alcohol Gaming Commission of Ontario codes and any other conditions the town deems necessary to safely operate an outdoor patio. And further, that the Director of Operations and Protective Services or designate be authorized to sign any necessary agreements. Questions on that resolution? Councillor Weed.
Thank you, Worship. I'm just wondering if there's been any thought given to businesses that may be in a way competing with one another, and who would have first right, or how those types of discussions would go if that kind of situation came up.
Director Hernan.
Through you, Mayor Terziano, this gives us the authority to work with existing businesses in front of their establishments. So you might have two competing businesses side by side that both want to expand, but they're already existing. This is not for a new business that wants to come in and take advantage of a patio spot. It's existing businesses expanding in front of their current location or adjacent to their current location.
Councillor Stone.
So this, can I ask, does this consider any refreshment vehicles or not?
Through you, Mayor Terziano, this is not dealing with refreshment vehicles. We have a bylaw that deals with that, and the bylaw department deals with that. This is expanding patios of existing businesses, restaurants, curbside pickup, things like that.
Thank you.
Okay. All in favor of the resolution? And that carries. Resolution number 2 is moved by Councillor Schumacher, seconded by Councillor Weed. Be it resolved that the $17,900 be taken from the COVID-19 Reserve Fund to cover the costs of PPE supply for Huntsville businesses. And those are the supplies that we've already basically ordered and distributed. Questions? No questions? All in favor? And that carries. Moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Armour. Be it resolved that the Director of Development Services be delegated authority to grant exemptions to Section 1.4 of the Business Licensing Bylaw 2017-111 for the remainder of 2020. Kirsten, do you want to speak directly to this one, or?
Thank you, Your Worship. This is the section of the business licensing bylaw that speaks to refreshment vehicles. And we saw in May, we had or April actually, we had an exemption to permit 2 on one property, and this would be in that same vein.
So that kind of answers the food trucks and things that we were talking about earlier. So any questions on that? Councillor Stone.
So it gives staff authority. So I just want staff, I know staff are listening, I want to caution against any refreshment vehicles downtown, because the restaurants down there have been struggling to survive all winter, and this coming winter and next year or the following year with streetscape, and to have a refreshment vehicle swing in and take the gravy money that they need to survive is important that we protect.
So there's not a question there, just a caution if we delegate that authority to keep that in mind. Okay, all in favor? And that carries. And that's a really good point, Councillor Stone. I have a resolution moved by Councillor Weeb, seconded by Councillor Schumacher. Be it resolved that the Director of Community Services be authorized to waive park permit fees for qualifying Town of Huntsville businesses as outlined in Schedule B to report COVID 2020-09, and further that the provision shall be in place from July 1st to October 12th, 2020. Lori, did you want to speak to that in any specifics for any requests that you've already had?
Yes, thanks, Your Worship. Yeah, this really evolved out of the need for some of the recreation, yoga, wellness community to physical distance as a business continuity plan as a result of COVID-19. And many of them were requesting space within parks for the use of their, to continue their business and to allow them to do some physical distancing. So we did do some research on this, and that's the result of saying that this is something that we feel that the town could support as a, to help fitness and wellness businesses who qualify to be allowed to operate within our parks and to waive the park fee as a way to support them.
Any questions? All in favor? And that carries. And number 5, moved by Councillor Alcock, seconded by Councillor Stone. Be it resolved that the Chief Administrative Officer be delegated authority to spend up to $20,000 of the COVID-19 Reserve Fund to support Huntsville economic recovery. Questions? All in favor? And that carries. And that will simply allow us to move forward with things in a timely manner if we need to. Final resolution with this report is moved by Councillor Thompson and seconded by Councillor Armour. Be it resolved that the action items identified in the COVID-19 Economic Recovery Plan attached to Schedule D to report COVID 2020-19 be adopted as presented. And further, that staff be directed to further investigate the programs identified and report back to council if there will be any associated additional costs. Questions? All in favor? And that carries. Okay. That was lots of information there, and thank you, Julie and Scott, for that report and preparing those resolutions. And I think everything we did there is just going to help us help our community to continue to get through COVID-19. So that's great. We're getting another stack of resolutions. Okay. Reports from municipal officers. Julia, prudent investor, one joint investment board, and information only, but is there anything you want to highlight in that?
Yeah, I just wanted just to highlight that this is kind of the final step, and it is just for information and just to put kind of everything we've done over the past year and a bit into one package, just so we remember in 10 years what we did. So there is a bylaw that's coming at the end of this, or in this meeting, that will finalize this process, and we'll be moving over to prudent as of July 2nd.
Any questions? Okay, thanks, Julia. Reports from municipal officers, community services, update to council on the event planning stage 2 framework for reopening Ontario, information only. Is Katie with us? Yeah, Katie.
Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship and members of council. I am here tonight to share information about the examples of the kind of collaborations we are doing with event organizers. Included in the framework for reopening our province, phase 2, announced on June 8th, is the ability for drive-in and drive-through venues to open, such as cultural events, theaters, and concerts. Minister Lisa MacLeod, the Minister of Heritage, Tourism, Culture and Sport, has recently launched a Destination Ontario marketing program aimed at recovery and the slow, cautious reemergence of social and cultural events as a way to connect people with their sense of place while driving economic recovery. The 2 examples I am sharing with you tonight emerged from the announcement of phase 2. Please know I will not be discussing the drive-in concert listed in the report, as it has very recently been moved locations to not be on town property and to the old fairgrounds. We are in active planning and collaboration with Ribfest, which will be a drive-through only format, and Movie on the Docks, boat in only, as opposed to last year. These 2 events are both examples of the kinds of events that are allowed under Ontario Phase 2 framework for reopening. And also to note that both of these events, patrons are restricted to their vehicle and or boat, and that precautionary measures will be strictly followed to help prevent the spread or resurgence of COVID-19 while connecting people with culture events they enjoy and bring the community slowly and safely back. I'd be happy to answer any questions of council about these events.
Questions from council? Councillor Weed.
Thank you, Mayor Terziano. Not a question so much as a comment. I think that there's some really key language in this report that speaks to reminding people about a sense of place. And I think when you look at some of the examples that Katie highlighted, and you look at how people have been surviving this epidemic, this pandemic, they often look to the more cultural and artistic side of the human spectrum. So I really think that it's I can't stress how important I think this report is, and I'm just really I'm proud and impressed that it's taken this kind of form, and I really look forward to more examples of this. I think the municipalities that do it well and really keep that idea of sense of place at the heart of the decisions, especially in the next 6 months or so, are going to be the ones that really come out maybe even stronger than before. So I just want to say thanks for that report.
Thank you. Other questions? Katie, I have one question on the Rib Fest, and that it's around who the rib suppliers are or outlets are, and I'm just thinking in terms of, are these local businesses, or are we bringing in somebody that is going to be competing with our local businesses who are already struggling with food services?
I believe, thank you, Worship, there are 2 rib venues on site. I am not 100% sure where they're coming from. Right now, we're just in the collaboration stages, and we just want to make sure that council was aligned with us in these events. But I am happy to get those details to you as soon as possible.
Okay, I just think it's important that if that we're not competing with our local restaurants who are already struggling with capacities and curbsides. Councillor Alcoa?
Thank you, Your Worship. And actually, my comment was very similar to yours. I also wanted to echo Councillor Weeb's comment. I thought it was a great note, and so thank you, Katie, for that. but I am looking at the Rib Fest, and I know that it's a successful event in the years past, but I do think this is an unusual year. And so if we are bringing all sorts of outside vendors in for the Rib Fest, there's part of me that thinks, is there a way that we could almost do something like that, same format, but almost like a local marché instead of the Rib Fest just this year, and say, hopefully other people will come back next year, but this year we could do the same kind of event, but again, more of a marché component, but using all of our local restaurants and food vendors and that sort of thing. Because, and I think it was raised earlier by Councillor Stone, this will support our local people. And I think that, from my perspective, should be the #1 priority for this year, based on all of the information, the good stuff you wrote in your report. So I'm glad the mayor raised that.
Councillor Fitzgerald?
Thank you, Your Worship. And I couldn't agree more with that sentiment. I'm assuming that it's a local charitable organization that's trying to organize this event. And I fully support all the restaurants, and I'm trying to do my part and do my takeout. I think we have to also recognize that there are other people in the community that are reached by these service groups and charitable organizations in our community, and they have very limited ways to make money. So I think we should be careful how we focus on one group, because I know that all these organizations, and I'm assuming it's an organization, Katie, I don't know if you can confirm that, but they're at wit's end on how to raise funds. And as a member of one of these small groups in my community of Port Sydney and Stevenson and Utterson, that we generate $50,000 a year, and it goes to people that fall through the cracks and need that money. So be careful how we focus on only one sector. We have responsibility to everyone in our community.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Katie. Katie, I see the dates for the Rib Fest for July 24, 25, I think it was. If we were to follow through with Councillor Alcock's suggestion of a marché and involve local food vendors or restaurants and that kind of thing, do we have time? Would you have time to put that together, do you think? Given that it's like about a month away, would that be asking a little too much of you to put that together?
Through you, Your Worship. Thank you, Councillor Thompson. I believe Ribfest is kind of its own separate entity. So if we weren't to go with them and do our own thing, we could try our best to get something around. But I believe they were just coming strictly to us. Last year, they were with the Lions Club, but this year they just came town and wanting to use our parking lot. So that answers your questions.
Yeah, if I may, Your Worship, follow up on that. So, Katie, then if it was something then that was being steered by the Lions Club, maybe it's something. The challenge could go out to them to put something like this together, because I really like the idea. I like Councillor Alcock's idea of the marché concept and getting everybody outside and the whole thing. I really like that idea. But anyway, just a thought, maybe it would be something we could throw back at the Lions Club and say, are you up to the challenge for doing this? I don't know, just a thought.
Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I was not aware that it was just a private enterprise that was trying to come into town. So I don't think I support that in any way, shape, or form. And I think it was a great idea that Councillor Alcock came up with for the marché or that type of thing where we encourage local people to get involved and come out and support local. So it's a small task they bid you with here, Katie. I'm sure you can rise to the challenge. Good luck.
Okay, there's no resolution here, council. It was for information only. So if there's no further questions. Okay, thanks, Katie. Lori.
Sorry, I just wanted to add one thing, that when we were speaking with the event organizer, one of the things that he stressed that I think needs to be considered in the larger framework is that the pork farmers are really suffering. Many rib fests throughout Ontario have been canceled. And so the pork farmers themselves would see this as a good thing to support. And in terms of our staff organizing events, that would be a new role that we would be taking on, because typically we're facilitating other people's requests for events rather than be the event organizers. So certainly, Councillor Thompson, if another organization wanted to do something, we would be open to doing it. What we're really trying to get a sense of here, without it being permission giving, is that this meets the stage 2 requirement. We have been approached by an organizer. There isn't really a great reason to say no. It's not conflicting right now with another like event locally. And I don't think it precludes another local event. We just want to get a sense of that from council, if this is something that you do support, as well as putting it out there to the local restaurants and local not-for-profit organizations to approach the town to work with us to do like a marché eat kind of event.
I think maybe what I'm hearing here is if this is a local organization or a local nonprofit organization, they have our support. If it's maybe a private organization from outside of our municipality, maybe we should have more information. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you again, Your Worship. Through you to Katie then. Katie, if I'm understanding this correctly, then this is something that's being driven by the Lions Club, so it would be a fundraiser for one of the local Lions Clubs. Is that the situation?
Okay.
Sorry, I just got cut out there. Through your worship. Last year it was with the Lions Club. This year it is not.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Thank you.
Madam CAO.
Thank you, Worship. If I can just quickly chime in here. So the reason the report was brought here tonight is because we are in different times. So typically, if we were in a normal situation, staff would just grant authority through our permitting process. It's not typically something that we would bring to council for approval. We do have the policy that council has approved with respect to special events, and our staff would proceed with issuing the permits based on that policy approved by council. The reason it's before you today is because we are certainly not in normal times. There's many restrictions from the province about how many people can congregate and how many people can be in a group and different types of activities that can take place. So even though this specific event is not restricted through any of the provincial regulations, as a community, we felt it was important to bring it forward to council to say, is this the type of event in the current situation that we as a community would support? So we're going to be attracting people to a certain location. We'll still be within the provincial guidelines. At the time the report was written, we actually had 3 events that were coming forward, so some changes have occurred. With respect to, is it a local business or not, that is a bit of a slippery slope when it comes to the Discriminatory Act. Basing permissions based on geographic location is a bit of a slippery slope for council to be diving into. So what the reason it was coming tonight is this something based on the current situation with COVID that council could stand behind because it does actually meet our policy. So that is why we're before council tonight with these events, Your Worship.
Councillor Alcock.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, CAO Corey, for that explanation. That's helpful. Certainly, again, Katie's note was very, very well thought out, very good. And so I can certainly support the concept in this time of COVID. If it's all done responsibly, the way it's laid out, I can support that.
Councillor Schumacher?
So I attended last year, looking back to some of my photos just now, Pistol Pete's and Camp 31 were the two Rib Fest people that had come in at that particular time. So I'm going to guess, as I know Katie's outlined in her report, a lot of other communities have done this recently. It is something that, you know, it's just one day to sort of get a sense of community and getting people out and getting a chance to just do something a little different than we've done right now, right? So it's just in line to be able to provide something for our community and a little, you know, sort of fun and something to be able to do and still be social distant and still follow all the rules and the guidelines. So I do like the idea. I did attend the JAWS last year as well and I found that great. Disappointing I won't be able to sit on the yard and watch from the one side, but totally get that, you know, doing Titanic on the water and people in a boat, I think would be a great experience for the town and for people to have something to do. And again, practice social distancing. I totally agree with your report, Katie, and thank you for bringing it forward.
Thank you. Councillor Weed.
Thank you, Your Worship. I hope that this event goes ahead and is a success, and I hope that everyone listening and anyone who's thinking of an event that could work within the parameters that are set forward, I hope the phone rings off Katie's hook so that all kinds of ideas come forward for anything that people can think of that they think might draw people out to do something that's still safe but fun, and like I said at the top, that still gives that sense of place. You know, I hope we have more of these events, and I hope that these are one of those things that helps us get back to feeling a little more normal.
Okay. We're on to, thanks, Katie. We're on to the report 2020-06 Community Services Path to Recovery. For information only. Lori?
Yes, thanks, Your Worship, and members of council. So as the framework for reopening Ontario Stage 2 got announced, we saw that there were many recreational venues and activities that were allowed, as well as heritage events. And we'll be hearing more about those later on in the meeting. This engagement plan is really being shared with you because we felt it was important. We're going to be involving a number of stakeholders from our community to help develop some guidance in terms of how we do reopen slowly and cautiously a number of activities and a number of venues within the community. The plan is being informed from a number of different levels, both nationally, provincially, and locally, as well as many professional associations that community services works from. The priority of the plan is to develop a plan that supports the health and safety of participants, staff, coaches, and volunteers. You can see in the report that there are several path to recovery teams that have been established with several members of our community to help us develop plans. We want to do this in a really collaborative manner, recognizing that the way in which groups access community services is a little different than they might access a town hall service. It goes beyond the customer service counter. People are getting changed in our facilities. They're interacting with one another in very close venues. So it's important that some of the return to sport at the national and provincial levels, which are very organized, their plans get integrated with our plan here at the town of Huntsville so that we're not in conflict with those plans, that we do it in a collaborative framework. We will be assessing the risk of the unique facility and the type of sport or activity that's going on with groups, and then developing plans with users that will support participation in a safe, cautious manner, and that also gains the trust of people returning to participation in recreation activities. It will be a planned, phased-in approach. It won't be like we're immediately back to doing what we used to do. Our goal is to develop a plan that's cautious and safe and that prevents community transmission of COVID-19. The plan will identify several mitigation strategies specific to the sport and the venue, a communications plan so that when people are visiting our facilities, they're informed about what to expect prior to coming there, and what the role of coaches and volunteers with their teams, as well as what the role of our staff is in that. And then also we'll be addressing any changes that might emerge as we go through COVID-19 so that we can respond to those changes. And also we will be developing some changes to our emergency management plans for how we respond when people have accidents within our facilities within a COVID-19 environment. So it's really just for information's sake. It will be taking up significant time. We're excited to be working with our community. Many of the groups are excited to be working with us. And we hope that it's a really collaborative, engaged process where we come up with one plan that people can support. So I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
Councillor Earl.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Lori, for that. I was looking at my notes here, and is this the note where you had the chart that said high, medium, and low risk for the different facilities throughout, right?
That was one of the attachments, yes.
Right, okay, so in that, and you're not recommending that we open Partners Hall. That's not recommended to be, that's not anywhere here, right? Because Partners Hall in that was identified as high risk.
Oh, I think you're referring to a different document.
Am I?
Yeah, I think so. You're referring to one that's had yes, no on it that was done earlier.
Could be. Well, it was the chart that talked about high, medium, and low risk. And it did talk about the Algonquin Theater and Partners Hall and all of our facilities.
Yeah,
so
no,
you don't,
that's not part of this.
That's not your note at all.
No, there is a risk assessment chart in there, but it's very generalized. And that what you're talking to was done pre-stage 2.
Okay, so maybe I missed my opportunity. Maybe it was previous. At some point I thought that we're not recommending opening Partners Hall, and I just wanted clarification. Maybe I could ask CAO Corey if we're recommending not opening Partners Hall, because I'd love some clarification on that. I've heard from members of the Art Society, and I keep thinking if we're opening Town Hall on July 6th, then it seems to me that that's something that could be managed if we wanted to have an art show or something like that. And I apologize, Lori, if I got it confused with yours, but somewhere I thought I saw a note in our package that made reference to that. So if I may ask CAO Corey, that would be great. Thank you.
Through Your Worship. So just to confirm, I do believe I don't actually have the document up in front of me that you're referring to, but there are still restrictions, and it's based on the Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit, and the Medical Officer of Health is that you still don't rent out meeting room space. So I think if there was any reference to Partners Hall, it may have been referencing the meeting space. With respect to the ability for individuals to walk through Partners Hall to view the art, that will be open when the town hall opens July the 6th. So just to confirm.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Thompson.
Thanks very much. Thank you, Your Worship. Thanks very much for that, CAO Corey, because like Councillor Alcock, I know there are members of the arts community that we're looking forward to, being doing presentations and so on in Partners Hall. So I think that's huge, and I really appreciate that. So I think we'll have some positive response from members of the arts community for this. Great, thank you.
The You're right, Councillor Alcock. It is in a high risk, but it's partner hall rental as opposed to partners hall as just a building. So it did make the list as high risk, but in the rental category. And I do believe that the discussions today were centered around opening partners hall for just a walkthrough and visual arts. So
Thank you for that clarification. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Okay. Next report is the Summer Youth Day Camp Program, and it has a resolution with it, and that is moved by Councillor Wiebe and seconded by Councillor Schumacher. Be it resolved that staff be directed to cancel the 2020 Youth Summer Day Camp due to the COVID-19 pandemic and provide online resources for families and children. Simone.
Good evening. The Summer Day Camp report outlines the costs of opening the Canada Summit Centre and the Active Living Centre for the purpose of offering a modified Summer Day Camp program. And therefore, due to the negative financial impacts, the health risks to children, staff, community at large, the challenging physical distancing requirements with children, the resources of staff to plan and prepare, and the liability to the corporation, staff are recommending that we don't offer summer camp this summer during the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Questions? Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Not a question, but just a comment, and I think that's very prudent, Simone. I would totally agree with that decision or that thought on your part.
Any other questions? Good report, Simone. Thanks for that. All in favor? And that carries.
Thank you.
The next one is aquatics. And it has a resolution moved by Councillor Schumacher, seconded by Councillor Wiebe. Be it resolved that staff be directed to offer beach swimming lessons and blended online programs for summer 2020 with the continuation of the closure of the indoor pool, and further that a reevaluation be conducted for the fall of 2020. Morgan.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Terziano. I want to take this opportunity to first thank Council for the excellent facilities and services that we have in Huntsville and for their foresight in the strategic plan, which puts so much focus on a healthy community. One of the stated goals is that we promote healthy, active living and that we provide programs and recreation for all. As a resident, I think that's part of what makes Huntsville such a great place to live. And I think we have reason to be thankful to Council for that. The pool has, for the past 36 years, been a vital part of that goal. It has an annual visitation rate of 36,500 participants, plus 2,000 children registered in swimming lessons. And I think that's partly why Huntsville has such a low drowning rate. We've been keeping in touch with our participants, and the general consensus we're getting is that they really want to come back. Even some of the so-called vulnerable population is eager to return. They tell us that it's a question of quality of life. The pool literally keeps them moving, and it improves their social well-being, their emotional well-being. And for that reason, I think the reopening of the pool at some point in the near future is very important to our community's health and well-being and to supporting Council's strategic direction. The report you have before you highlights a lot of positive reasons for opening the pool. And as manager, I've readied the operation to open. But the report also contains a financial analysis of reopening. And this analysis has caused staff to recommend not opening at this time. The main reason is that the Canada Summit Centre isn't open. And so to open up the Canada Summit Centre when aquatics is the only program running would mean that aquatics was causing the full cost of running the Canada Summit Centre, and that makes the numbers high. However, even if the pool doesn't reopen, we are recommending that we run beach lessons this summer, as we have traditionally at Port Sydney Beach. And we're also recommending that we run first aid courses and certified leadership courses through blended online learning. I'm available for any questions you might have.
Thanks, Morven. Council, questions? Councillor Stone.
Just simply, it makes sense to me not to open for the summer when people swim in the lakes and anyway. Now, are we anticipating to hopefully open in September?
I think we will continue to monitor, and we will come back to you with a reevaluation for a possible September opening.
Thank you. That makes sense.
Any other questions of Morven? Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Morven. The question I have is, what type of programs do you think you want to offer in Port Sydney for swimming lessons? And typically, who are your participants? So who are we reaching is my question, I guess.
Through you, Mayor Tarziano. Councillor Fitzgerald, traditionally we have offered swimming lessons for children. The Red Cross program, all levels, sea turtle through level 10, and we would continue to do that. We have made some modifications to keep it safe, aside from screening and physical distancing and hand washing and all the other modifications that businesses in general have put into place. We're also thinking of involving parents more. Swimming lessons are not a no-contact sport. Children, especially the non-swimmers, need to be held. They need to have their bodies moved into the proper position. And since instructors will not be able to do that with COVID, we are inviting parents to come into the classes, and the instructor will demonstrate to parents how to do this so that they will provide the actual hands-on.
Great.
Can I just follow up, Your Worship? That sounds great. And you say you've been in contact with your users. So do you think there's enough interest and enough parents available to make this all happen with your numbers of $3,900 for the programming?
Through you, Mayor Tarziano, I can't promise that. We can't say for sure what the confidence of the public is going to be like. When I sent out an email, I very quickly got several emails back from people that sounded eager to return. There also were one or two who are still concerned about their children's health and wouldn't be returning right away. So that's one of the things we just don't know.
Thanks, Morven.
Councillor Schumacher.
I think it's great to continue to offer these types of, and I mean, we do have lots of lakes and we have the ability, and as an 8 and 9-year-old who did do my lessons at the Port Sydney Beach at 8 in the morning and it's really cold, I will tell you though, very beneficial, did my life saving. And yeah, it's a great to have those programs and abilities for our residents to be able to do, and for parents to have that opportunity to have their kids learn to swim in a lake where they're going to use it. And then I guess furthermore, my question around the possible September opening is, at the pool, at the Summit Center, would you have to keep in mind the ability to social distance depending on how the province opens up into the fall? Is that sort of something that you're looking at as to whether that would be the pros and cons to opening?
Through you, Mayor Terziano. Councillor Schumacher, physical distancing in the pool itself is not going to be as big a problem. I've been meeting regularly with our regulatory bodies. I've been meeting once a week with Parks and Recreation, once a week with the Life Saving Society, and once a week with our local Simcoe Muskoka Aquatic Group. And they're all saying that we can put more than 10 people in the pool and still have lots of distance between the participants. Our challenge is going to be the change rooms. Our pool was built 36 years ago, and our change rooms don't meet the modern standards of being large and gender neutral. But just today, I was working on a change room schedule. So I have demonstrated that we can bring people in and out and still manage to keep the numbers small in the change rooms by using all 3 change rooms.
So just to follow up, similar to golf times, you kind of have your time to go.
Yes. And we're also planning that people will have to reserve in advance. So instead of having our normal drop-in where there's a free flow of people in and out all the time, they won't be able to do that. They'll have to reserve, and that reservation will also reserve them change room time. And they'll have a limited amount of time in the change room, and then they'll have to get out on deck so that the next group can go through.
Great. Councillor Alcock.
Sorry, I'll thank you, Your Worship. I'll just be very quick. I just wanted to thank Morven for, that was a great report, really interesting. Thank you.
Morven, I agree. I think your recommendation not to open the pool at this time during the summer is a good recommendation, and I hope that it's revisited for the fall in conjunction with the whole Canada Summit Center. I don't want to see one facility within the building not be able to open because they're absorbing all the costs. I think we need to look at everything that could possibly come online this year as a whole and make sure all of those costs are distributed so that we're not doing a whole lot of one-offs. And then at the end of it, the last guy to the party's not going to get anything because we'll be out of cash. So I hope that we look at it as a whole, probably part of Lori's entire plan going forward. But, so we're good with the beach lessons and going forward. All in favor, council? I think that carries. Okay, I have a resolution moved by Councillor Weeb, seconded by Councillor Schumacher. Be it resolved that community services staff be directed to slowly phase in the safe reopening of Muskoka Heritage Place beginning in July of 2020. Is Ron here? Yeah, there he is. Hi, Ron.
Hello. Hi there. I'll just do a summary of this if I may. Thank you, Worship, members of council. Included in the provincial phase 2 of the recovery plan announced on June 8th is the ability to reopen attractions and heritage institutions. This report hopefully will answer the questions that council need to decide if they want to in fact do that and open Muskoka Heritage Place MHP to the public for summer 2020. We've developed a safe training and opening plan for personnel. Our reopening and marketing campaign would promote the need for visitors to make reservations, and the site has plenty of space to accommodate distancing. In the Pioneer buildings where we can't offer distancing, staff will act as monitors and signage will be used to encourage one group inside at a time, and demonstrations would be moved outside. We can meet cleaning requirements through just redeploying of our regular return staff resources. The question everyone's asking is how many tourists are going to be around in the first place? With the province encouraging day tripping and inviting people to experience what's in their backyard, we're very fortunate that our prime market that makes up 60% of our revenue are 2 hours away or less. We believe tourists are going to be here, and MHP offers a safe venue. Financially, the net cost to open MHP is just over $120,000. That's above the cost of keeping it closed for the season. The breakdown for that net amount is in your package, but mainly consists of salary, wages, contract labor, lower projected visitation, and lost revenues. And we are projecting lost revenues for the year to be about $95,000, some of which is already lost. For example, the school strike this spring negated our education programming even before COVID and accounts for 14% of that 95,000. With this $120,000 to reopen that is projected, that will bring MHP in at a projected $30,000 net over our original approved 2020 budget, sort of the polar opposite of last year where we came in at $30,000 better than budget. If local merchants, restaurants, hotels, resorts are open for tourism, the thinking is that they could use our support in providing another reason for people to visit Huntsville. I think we all have a pretty good idea that tourism numbers may be down, but we're still projecting about 6,000 visitors. Now, again, that's a long way from our 16,000 from last year, yet still translates into over $1 million of economic spin-off as calculated in the Ontario TREM report. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions from council? Councillor Armour.
Thank you, Worship. Not so much a question. Thanks, Ron, for the report. I think it's a great opportunity, as we spoke before, about people getting outside and finding things to do instead of being cooped up in their homes and et cetera. And if we can do social distancing here, there's an opportunity maybe for on those cloudy days for people to run into town, bring them through the Heritage Place and maybe spend some money in a downtown core also. So I think it's a good idea.
Other questions? Ron, one of the questions that I had your report didn't answer is, have you approached all of your seasonal staff? Are they all willing to come back, all of your interpreters and guides?
They are. I believe I've only lost 2 who found another job. I can give you a quick little story. I bumped into our longtime blacksmith in a parking lot about a month ago, and I said, look, how long would you need if we get the go ahead on this? And he thought about it in a minute. And he said, an hour.
And if we opened up and we were open for a week and ended up with a positive case of COVID in the village, are we automatically shut for 14 days?
We have the ability to shut the whole place right back down again. If unfortunately that should happen, we would make the decision, are we going to close for the rest of the year, or is it a brief interlude? Most likely we would shut down from the year, and in that case we could do it in 3 days again. It's kind of like just the end of our season. We're very used to winterizing the artifacts and boarding up the windows and making it winter friendly, so we could react quite quickly to that should it happen.
And I take it when the guests come in, they'll all be leaving their names and phone numbers and things like that, so that we'll have the contact tracing should something happen.
I've been working with the manager of IT, and he's researching a system for us to use that we hope that will be achieved through the actual reservation system. So we expect that there will be those who arrive without a reservation that will be put in queue, and we will manually add them into the reservation system. And at that time, we will gain their contact information as well, because obviously that's important for tracking should anything happen.
Any other questions from council? All in favor of the resolution? That carries. Okay, believe it or not, that's the end of our reports, and we're at bylaws. Thanks, Ron.
Thank you.
I have a resolution moved by Councillor Alcock, seconded by Councillor Withey. Be it resolved that bylaws numbers 2020-53 and 2020-55 to 2020-59 inclusive be reported and read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed this 24th day of June. 53, prudent investor enabling bylaw. 55, appointment of municipal law enforcement officer parking. 56, building shared service agreement. 57, Rayville developments. 58, Rayville developments, and 59, Rayville developments. Questions? All in favor? That carries. And I have a resolution moved by Councillor Stone and seconded by Councillor Thompson. Be it resolved that Council approve the following amendments to the 2018-2022 Huntsville Public Library Board. Council Resolution number 14-19. The deletion of Sue Dixon and the additions of Nancy Cameron, Melissa Lindsay, and Ray Love. So that is the former chair who retired, and then the additions of 3 new board members, taking the library board up to a complement of 9. Questions? All in favor? And that carries. Okay, we're at general information. There's correspondence in your council package for you to read. We have District of Muskoka updates. There's a Community Planning Services Committee. Councillor Alcock, do you have anything to highlight from that?
I do. Thank you, Your Worship. And I know everybody's getting tired, so I'll be really brief, but there were a couple of issues that I thought were important to Huntsville. And that was the CAPS committee approved the plan of subdivision application for Pine Haven Estates in Port Sydney. And there were a number of conditions attached to that. And those conditions came about due to consultations between the developer and the community with respect to the addition of an extra lot for park space, for a multi-use trail down the center of it, number of things that we heard before at our committee. So anyway, that was approved. Staff provided a report on the appeal of the Earl's Road subdivision in Huntsville. And the appeal is to LPAT by the applicant for non-decision. And that's the application. We haven't had it before our committee yet. It's the one that we talked about going forward with a secondary plan. It's 900 plus units that include single family dwellings and multis. So the applicant in that case has decided that the district didn't respond in a timely fashion to their plan of subdivision. So that's what they've appealed to LPAT. So that was really just an update for us, and I thought you'd find that interesting. Committee approved a recommendation to have the delegated authority to staff for a number of resort commercial applications. In the past, we had delegated that decision-making authority to staff around things like amendments to OPs and extensions and things like that. So staff asked that delegated authority be rescinded because of a number of ongoing issues around interpretation of existing policy, because we haven't updated our commercial resort policy in the OP. So that was approved on all new applications. We approved a single source contract to work with the Minette Steering Committee on coming to a final resolution for an OP amendment for their resort commercial application in Minette. The reason why I thought you might find that interesting is when they do come to some sort of resolution, some of the recommendations and policies in that could have implications for the broader district. And finally, all directors provided updates on their activities in time of COVID. And I thought it was interesting that our environmental director said that the district's climate action plan would be coming to council in the fall. So that's kind of exciting because we've been waiting for that. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions? Okay. I had one meeting on May 28th, the Municipal Modernization Committee, which is a new committee at District. The one item on our agenda right now is the District Council composition review, which the province has mandated and has to be completed by December of this year. So that committee is looking at trying to facilitate the downsizing of district government. And then we had a regular council meeting, and fairly large issue at that was the closing of the grass runway at the airport. That was probably about an hour-long discussion, and we ended up supporting the recommendation of the Muskoka Airport Board and closed that runway for the balance of 2020. There were a couple of big projects awarded for Huntsville in the repairs, rehabilitations of the Big East River Bridge and the Canal Road Bridge. I think that was the bulk of the things, unless anybody else that was at that 4.5-hour marathon can think of anything that I'm missing. No questions? Okay, great. So, Council, that brings us to a resolution moved by Councillor Armour and seconded by Councillor Fitzgerald. Be it resolved that the next portion of the meeting be closed to the public, commencing now at 8:08 p.m. for the purpose of considering the following matters: litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals, and advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, confidential report 2020-49, local planning appeal tribunal, official plan, and confidential report 2020-50, Muskoka Pharma Inc., and proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land, report 2020-16, property within the urban core. All in favor? And that's carried. So we do have to all zoom out and zoom back into closed session, and for the public, there will be resolutions coming out of closed session. Okay, we have everyone back. We're just missing pictures for Councillor Armour and Councillor Withy. If you guys can show your faces again. There's one. There's Councillor Withy. Great. Okay. I'm going to select a mover and seconder, Councillor Schumacher and Councillor Armour. Moved by Councillor Schumacher, seconded by Councillor Armour. Be it resolved that Council direct staff to participate in the North Granite Ridge hearing of the official plan to uphold the decision of Council at the local planning appeal tribunal. Questions? All in favor? Opposed? That carries. Councillor Wiebe and Councillor Fitzgerald. Moved by Councillor Weeb, seconded by Councillor Fitzgerald. Be it resolved that council pass a bylaw repealing Town of Huntsville Bylaw 2019-12 as it pertains to 73 Old North Road. Questions? All in favor? And that carries. I need 2/3 vote to suspend the rules. If I can get Councillor Weeb to move that. Councillor Fitzgerald. Moved by Councillor Weed, seconded by Councillor Fitzgerald. Be it resolved that the rules of procedure relating to approval for additions to the agenda be suspended to allow for the following matters, and that the suspension be reinstated at the conclusion of the said matters. Bylaw and agreements for passage. A, Bylaw 2020-60, Muskoka Pharma, Part Lots 17 and 18, Con 6 Chafee, repeal of Bylaw 2019-12 in respect of lands. And Bylaw 2020-61, acquisition of 11 and 13 High Street and 10 and 12 Princess Street. Questions? All in favor? That carries. Okay. So, the bylaw for Muskoka Pharma, Crystal's going to bring it up on the screen, I guess. And I need a mover and seconder. So Councillor Armour and Councillor Thompson. So moved by Councillor Armour, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2020-60, Muskoka Farmer, Part Lots 17 and 18, Con 6, Chafee, repeal of bylaw 2019-12 in respect of lands, be reported and read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed this 24th day of June 2020. And there's the bylaw before you. Should be noted it is a housekeeping bylaw. Are there any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? And that carries. I have Councillor Thompson has declared a conflict of interest, which he can stay at the meeting. You just can't speak to this next motion or vote on it. Crystal's going to bring this bylaw up too, if I can get it moved by Councillor Alcock, and seconded by Councillor Schumacher. Be it resolved that bylaw 2020-61, acquisition of 11 and 13 High Street and 10 and 12 Princess Street, be reported and read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed this 24th day of June 2020, and Councillor Thompson has declared a conflict of interest. And there's the bylaw before you. I will give council a chance to read that. Are there questions? Councillor Weeb.
Thank you, Mayor Terziano. Up until this point, we've been using it as a parking lot. And we I think we used it just in the way that it was, how it was laid out. Is there any opportunity to, if we continue to use it for parking, to expand the amount of parking that's there? Or is it going to go forward as status quo?
I would maybe ask Director Hernan if he could help answer that question.
I guess we could look at expanding it. I would just need some direction as to what you're thinking. We're using all the physical space that's there now, and the layout is the best we can do with the center aisle, without getting into spending some major money on it or encroaching on the sidelines.
Okay. Yeah, that's basically was the question. I wasn't sure if we could push, if we thought about maybe adding fill to the back end of it, or if there was an opportunity there, but If it's going to cost us an arm and a leg to gain 2 spots, it might not be worth it, right?
I can have staff look at it again.
Good. All in favor? That carries. And I have a resolution moved by Councillor Schumacher and seconded by Councillor Fitzgerald. Be it resolved that confirmation bylaw 2020-62 be received, numbered, and read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed this 24th day of June 2020. All in favor? And I have a resolution moved by Councillor Stone and seconded by Councillor Armour. Be it resolved that we do now adjourn at 9:02 p.m. All in favor? And that carries. And thank you very much, Council. Thank you very much, staff.
Nice seeing everyone. Be safe.
Take care, everyone.